Okay.
Turn on the cameras. There we go.
All right, sweet. Well, I will go ahead and call this regular Planning Commission meeting to order for Tuesday, March 5th at 2 p.m. We'll go ahead and do a roll call.
And unmute.
Oh. Hey, Ron. Hey, Vicky. I already called us to order, but we were muted, so.
Okay. Sorry, I'm on late.
We're having some technical difficulties. Give us 1 second.
Sure.
In stereo. Those guys' echo turned up today.
We don't need to hear Ron that much.
He's been doing some Guitar Hero.
Hey, I heard that.
You heard that.
Yeah, need to talk quieter then.
Or actively mute him.
I heard that too.
There's Andrew. He had to do a reboot. Something's gone on with it.
Hi there. Do you mind signing in if you're going to comment today? Thank you.
Let's do that feedback. Thank you.
Hi there, sir. Do you mind signing in if you're going to comment? Okay, thank you.
It'll be just a second. We have to get Andrew to fix that feedback issue.
Okay.
It's something to do with the reset.
Okay.
I wonder if there's noise if Ron mutes.
Do you have an echo?
Yeah.
Yeah,
try it.
these meeting things, Zoom meetings work great
Ron?
when they work.
Ron, could you say something again?
I spend 90% of my week on Zoom.
Does it?
Yes.
Gone?
Yes.
Better.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
That's gone.
All right, let's do this again.
Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
it was. It was an easy button. Why don't we go ahead and do the roll call, please?
Okay. Commissioner Baugh?
Here.
Commissioner Byers?
Here.
Commissioner Hall?
Here.
Commissioner McLean? Commissioner Richardson?
Here.
Commissioner Rigsby?
Here.
Commissioner Williams?
Vicky, I know you're on, but I don't know if you came off mute.
I did, but I'm here.
Perfect, thank you.
Also present is Zach and Michael via Zoom, Stephanie and Christy for the planning department, along with village manager Ron Senna. You do have a quorum.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. All right, at this time, if there are any conflicts of interest from the commission, now would be the time to declare it.
None. I have none.
None. None.
Okay. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move to the next bullet point, certification of compliance with Resolution 2024-01. Stephanie, are we in compliance?
I do certify that all properties and meetings were posted in accordance with Resolution 24-01 and Section 5440 of the Municipal Code.
Cool.
Chairman Rigsby, before we move on to number 3, I would like to inform you that the applicant for item 6A, I did receive a written request to remove him from the agenda. So if we could just proceed past that and move on to item 6B.
Sweet, okay. We'll move to item 3 then, approval of agenda with the removal that Stephanie described. Is there any conversation about the agenda as stated? If not, we can vote to approve the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the deleted item as stated. Second.
I have a motion and a second. No need for discussion. We'll just go to a vote.
Commissioner Baugh?
Aye.
Commissioner Byers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hall?
Aye.
Commissioner McLean? Aye. Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rigsby?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. Thanks all. Number 4, approval of the last meeting minutes for February 6, 2024. These minutes were included within your packet. I assume the commissioners had the opportunity to read them. Any corrections or comments on the meeting minutes from last meeting?
No, I have none. Make a motion to accept the meeting minutes as presented in the packet.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion on the item? Seeing none, let's move to a vote.
Commissioner Baugh?
Aye.
Commissioner Byers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hall?
Aye.
Commissioner McElina? Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rigsby?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Sweet. All right, I'm going to sign this real quick. And then let's move to our public input. So for those that are here, we got a number of you. This is the opportunity to provide public input on any item that is not listed in the agenda. I believe a number of you are here to comment on one of the items we have a little bit later on. This is for this commission to hear comments from the community. So if there's anything that's not related to the item we have later, now would be the time to mention it or comment. Seeing none and none on the Zoom, we'll go ahead and close public input and move to number 6, quasi judicial public hearing. We'll move to conditional use and variance on 6B, which is now 6A. I know that the applicant is here. Does the applicant want to come forward and kind of describe this? And Stephanie, do you want to give us an understanding of this conditional use?
Yes, so today we have Jasper Riddle applying for a conditional use approval along with a variance to establish a food truck in conjunction with his business located at 2332 Sutterth Drive, Lot 11B, Block 4 of the Riverside Edition. The variance is to request to combine square footage of 3 individual lots to try and get closer to the minimum of 12,000 square feet as required by our code. Even with the combination of the 3, we are still short approximately 3,000 square feet from that requirement. So Jasper is here to present his request and to elaborate on the need for the variance.
Cool. Hey, do you mind raising your hand, stating your name, and say you'll tell the truth and nothing but the truth, please? Thanks, Jasper. And is your mic on, just to confirm? It should be green.
There we go. That's,
Okay,
should be
perfect.
good there, right?
Now we'll get you for the record. So tell us a little bit about what you're looking to do.
Sure, yeah, so thank you for the opportunity. And for clarification, so I have Noisy Water Winery, the Cellar Uncorked, and various other pieces of real estate in that area. Based off lot sizes alone in Midtown, the ordinance makes it almost impossible. This is not bringing in an external food truck or an external food vendor behind what is the Rudoso Leathers building, as many people know it. There's a piece of land that sat there filled with trash for the past decade. We purchased that property, we went in there, we've cleaned it up, we've expanded outdoor seating, that's all been permitted and done. To better service customers down in that area from the Cellar Uncorked, the existing business, we're looking to bring in a food truck which would service as a outdoor bar space and also expand our food offerings. As many of you know, the properties in Midtown are built sidewalk to sidewalk. There's not room for expansion of kitchens or anything like that. So the food offerings we're able to do are extremely limited in the existing space. It's charcuterie boards, bread platters, and very limited items. What we'd like to be able to do is like add in some additional little bites, sandwiches, things like that here and there on a limited rotational basis. This is not meant to take out or take business away from anybody else. We could do this out of the existing footprint that we have there in those 4 walls. It's just trying to better utilize that outdoor space. It's also a proof of concept for me. If this works, it allows me to go in there, improve additional real estate, say, hey, I want to build brick and mortar here and see if it works. The issue we see in Midtown, from my opinion, is when people get hungry, there's not enough people to service them. So if people get hungry, they inevitably leave. When they leave, their dollars leave, okay? I want to provide food, expanded food in Midtown any more than I want a hole in the head, all right? But I want the opportunity to not lose that tax revenue of people walking out of that district saying, let's go eat away from the district, let's leave the district, and then they don't come back down there and spend dollars. So it's just the opportunity to really say, look, we have some nice offerings for you. This is expanded concept. What we're already doing, this is not me bringing in taco trucks and pizza trucks and all these things. This is us saying we're putting a mobile vending truck adjacent to our existing property to service our patios. if this is not permitted, then we can do it from inside of our space. This is just a much easier use for us, and I think a much better use for Midtown. I know there's been stalled conversations in the Midtown area on the beautification of Rio Street, the redefining of Rio Street. I've heard complaints from the property owners adjacent across the river in those condos that they want to see Rio Street become to be vibrant, and that's definitively my push. If it were up to me, Sudderth would be more vibrant. It would be a lot more walkable and a lot more easier for pedestrians and people that want to be down there. That's not what I'm here about today. It's just trying to expand and use those spaces, make better use. We've already beautified what was essentially a parking lot and trying to make it into a nice outdoor space, and that's what this request is. And I stand for any questions you have on it. And I understand that there's a square footage restriction, but I think this is not us saying we're bringing in new business. It's us just asking for us to use this as a part of our established business that's already there and expand what we're already doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If you don't mind just sitting in the front seat, because we'll have more questions as the commission discusses this item. At this time, I believe we'll open it up to public input on this item. We have the applicant's stated testimony, and now we will be able to open it up for folks that can either speak for or against it. Just so everybody's aware, there is the right and the opportunity to what's called cross-examine, which is basically ask questions questions to the applicant, and then you also have the right to state your piece. So I know that there's a number of people here. We'll try to take it as best we can. We'll limit comments to no more than 2 minutes, just so that way we aren't here all day. Okay. So at this time, we'll open it up for public comment for either those for or against. If anybody would like to speak, make sure that you have signed in. And then whoever would like to come first, feel free to stand up, raise your hand, but come on down. Come on down, thanks. And then when you come down, if you don't mind just saying your name, raising your hand, say you'll tell the truth, nothing but the truth, all that good stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Here.
Yes, please, thank you.
Hi, my name's Jason Hickson. I will tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, I'm here to support Jasper and his endeavors here. I'm a manager at the Green Room in Ruidoso, so, we see a lot of Midtown business, and I can only see benefit of being able to have more options for people to keep that money in town or in Midtown area, because once they leave, it's hard to get them back sometimes for especially, considering what I do. So, there's other options, and if we keep them there local, right there, then they stay and they spend the money. So I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think you dropped your glasses. Did you grab those?
Man, listen, I'm trying to lose all day today.
Thank you. Anyone else for or against this topic or questions for the applicant? Hey there. Do you mind stating your name, raising your hand, say you'll tell the truth?
Yes. Hi, I am Shelby Rist, and I will tell the truth and nothing but the truth. So I am here in support of this endeavor. I'm one of the co-owners of Downshift Brewing Company. So we have a location that is, I think we're 3 buildings down. We also serve food, beer, wine, and spirits, and we have a ton of events. But I think the beautification of that street, of Rio Street back there, is really important to us. We're fronting onto that space. We've invested a lot to make our business more beautiful, more dynamic, and to invite people in. So I think having another option down the street is not problematic for us at all. We would definitely encourage it. And I don't think we really see it being a negative to us. Those people are already there spending their money. So I don't think they're gonna, not come down and have a pizza with us, to have a small bite there. So we are in support, and we'd like to see more food trucks. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Shelby.
Thanks.
Come on down. You're the next contestant.
Hello, I'm Mary Jo Piedmont, and I will tell the truth, nothing
Thank-
but the truth.
Thank you very much.
I am definitely in support of the food truck. I am one of the owners of the 2338 property, so the truck would be directly behind me. And I think that it's just an additional option for people. I really think it's going to keep people in town longer. families especially. I know with a lot of little kids, they don't necessarily always want to sit in a restaurant all that time. So it's just, like I said, another option for people to just be able to wander around. I think it's really gonna keep people in town a lot longer. And already I don't know if you've seen what it looks like now, but it looks so much better than what it did when we bought that building, 2338, the leather store, a couple years ago. And this is just gonna make it look even better and keep people in town. So, definitely in support.
Thank you. Come on down.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jason Edmister, and I promise to speak the truth. I'm coming down as basically a local resident that has been around for 30 years now. That doesn't even sound right. I guess I moved here when I was about 5. As a local, one of the real busy weekends, usually my family won't go down there because you can't go eat anywhere. So I'm in favor of adding a food truck because that just provides more options. And lots of times we like to go and see the busy events, but if you do want to go and eat, you do have to leave usually because all of the other places are filled. So I am speaking in favor of the food truck. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Bailey Huffman, and I promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth. I'm in support of the food truck, just as Mr. Edmister said. As a local, I often avoid going into Midtown because it's just too chaotic in the weekends. And then during the week, many of the restaurants are closed on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So I know even just for my staff, sometimes it's hard for them to get food either during the busy time or in the middle of the week. And so I think more offerings in Midtown is a great thing for Midtown. I also think it lends itself to more responsible alcohol consumption. And I think it's really nice that in an establishment where people are drinking, it's not difficult for them to obtain food. So I'm in support of the food truck. And I own Old Barrel Tea Company in Midtown.
Thank you. Others that would like to comment for or against this item? We'll get you after him, sir.
All right, my name's James Rupley. I will tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Perfect. Nailed it. Yeah.
I also support the food truck on the property behind the Cellar Uncorked. I've worked in around that area for over 5 years now. A lot of the improvements that Jasper and all the noisy businesses have done have made it like night and day compared to what it used to be.
Bless you.
So I think a food truck on the property would be a good complement to all the improvements that the village is doing, where they're gonna improve the parking lot and then the park down at the end of the street too.
Great.
And alcohol and food, more food is better.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Has he signed that?
I think so. You signed in, correct, sir?
Yeah.
I think somebody, yes, she signed in.
Hi, my name's David Lagan. I'm here to tell the truth.
Sounds great. Thank you, sir.
And so I don't necessarily have an objection. My wife has, excuse me, we got a little asthma going on. My wife has, a small business in Midtown, Pie Hole, and so we're always leery of for want of a better word, change. And like I say, I don't necessarily have an objection, but I would like a little more clarification on the product that they're offering in their food trailer.
Yes, sir. And we can, so that's a question for the applicant on what the menu might consist of. Jasper, if you'll come back up front and want to answer that, and sir, if you have additional questions, you can sit one row back. It's just kind of how the, what's that? If there's no objections, you can.
You're more than welcome to sit. You're good. No, nice to meet you. I like your pie. But great question. So what we offer at the cellar currently is we have charcuterie boards, we have oil and vinegar platters with bread, just like light appetizers. We'd like to expand that a little bit. We've talked about like doing some pasta salads, having like a sandwich of the day, a soup of the day, a light menu to expand, and then like once a week or Friday nights, do a pasta night or something. After town has totally closed and rolled up its doors, we have no desire to compete with what's happening down there whatsoever. And we try to stay away from that in all of our businesses. So it's like for me, no, I'm not gonna put in a bunch of pie or cookies or sweets or fudge that's going in around me already. And nor do I want it to be a direct competition. I'm vested in a lot of these businesses around it. So it's just a complementary good, and we want it as an option, especially for us, so our staff does not have to traverse 2 flights of stairs for service. So because that trailer that we have actually has the opportunity, it has taps in it. It has opportunity to vend wine out of. So I'm not asking people to walk flights of stairs to go to a patio. I have a set space to do that. So we're gonna see what conceptually is gonna work there. And my hope is that it's something that makes sense 7 days a week, but as you guys know, in Midtown, half the time you're losing money, especially so times of the year. So a lot of it for us is just even seeing what people are interested in down there, what they want. My family's Italian, so if they want homemade pasta on Friday nights and they want to do a pasta night and make it fun for everybody, great, we're totally open to that. We just want to see what works there. And this is the proof of concept for us to be able to go further and say, hey, these are what offerings are working, but it's no intention to be a competition restaurant to anybody down in the district. It's really just so we can help better service that outdoor space and offer some expanded offerings, because to the point of some of this group, when people have a capacity for alcohol, and as somebody that manufactures alcohol here in Ruidoso, at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday with the whole street rolled up, if there's not food offerings, they're leaving or they're intoxicated. And so there's something that, like, for me, I want to be a good steward of that district and making sure that we have offerings for them down there to have. So hopefully that opens the question or answers a little bit.
So, my only comment would be, once you open the door, I mean, what does the council think about additional, vendors coming in? I mean, that door's open now, and well, I mean, there's no recourse.
Well,
Not that I'm objecting per se to you, but there's really no recourse for us. If somebody wants to come down there,
Well, I agree with you fully, and there actually is, because this is a variance. So I'm asking for a variance for zoning, I'm not asking to change zoning. If I was asking to change zoning, then I would open the door for everybody else to come in under that. I'm just asking for a variance for the laws that are in place, saying, hi, I would like for you to make this exception, given these certain parameters. So I'm not opening it to food trucks in the district by any form. So it would still be in phase. I'm just asking for them to make a variance on the laws that are in place over that district based off zoning.
that kind of makes my point is, and again, I don't necessarily object, but my point is, if you get a variance, what stops someone else from getting a variance?
Yes, sir. Very, very good point taken. The board here, the commission here, within our purview, so that all of these matters don't go up to the village council, this board is granted, it's a quasi-judicial hearing because we're granted unique abilities or responsibilities under the law where we review case by case like this to determine if a conditional use is needed, if a variance is needed. This is all laid out within the ordinances. So it wouldn't, just because we allow one instance of this, it wouldn't open it up to any other instance. They'd still have to come through this board and say, yes, we approve, or nay, we don't approve. So it's built within the system, but your point is well taken. And I'm sure the commissioners up here, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but this will be part of the conversation when we ask questions on the applicant.
So I do agree with one said, and, that's to, maybe hold people in Midtown, for longer than they would normally stay. Because once they leave, we're not selling anything to them.
Certainly.
And I can see that point.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you both. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Other comments or, Mr. Ed, I know that you commented before. Are you commenting on the comments or do you have another?
I just had maybe some clarification. I don't mind saying it from here or going up there.
Sure, come on down.
Okay.
You're getting an exception to the rule. Usually it's one and done, so.
I'm using somebody else's.
That's right, yeah. We wouldn't expect anything less, you know.
Just to clarify,
Sir,
it's for property he already owns, is that correct? And he's shy by, was it 3,000?
currently you have to have a 12,000 square foot lot to have a mobile vending unit is
Okay.
what the ordinance states, yes.
Okay, so I just would like to make the comment to other property owners, such as the gentleman that was bringing up that point, is I would hope that there are sometimes these exceptions made to people who actually have property, and there are some smaller properties down there that I would hope that they would sometimes get. We're not talking about somebody just bringing in an out-of-town food truck and putting on property they don't own. I want to make sure that I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, there would be a process that they would either have to have the sufficient lot size, it would still come to a conditional use. Right now, for everybody's edification, there's nothing really within the ordinance that just inherently allows food trucks. It's all done based off of conditional use, and it's typically done with a conditional use tied to a business that has a physical property. So we see every single mobile vending or food truck that comes through town, and it's tied to a specific business, and it would have to meet certain parameters.
Yeah, that was just my.
Yep. Good clarification. Thank you. Other comments for or against this item from the group? Hi there, how are you? No need to apologize. You'll just state your name and then promise to tell the truth, nothing but the truth.
Janice Massler, El Paso, Texas, promise to tell the truth.
Thank you.
I, coming from El Paso, Texas, am very familiar with taco trucks, food trucks. My concern here is, number one, fire conditions. I don't know what is going to be served. I'm afraid of the fires after seeing this fire that we had here before, after seeing the fires in Panhandle. Okay, fine. Second, I have a problem with parking. We're kind of limited with parking right now, and I have a feeling that this is going to add to the situation of difficult parking. And then third one was, who is going to be around the food truck if it's going to be open late at night, i.e., you said the alcohol, whatever else. And I just feel that at this point, Ruidoso is not really ready for food trucks yet. Maybe later on, but I'm not happy with having food trucks in Ruidoso. I think it brings the class down a little bit. Okay?
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate
Thanks.
that. Other comments from the group for this item?
I want to know that, Dustin, what, Devin?
So if you folks came in a little late, we're on number B for this one. For the variance A, that one has been withdrawn, and we're not going to comment on that one today.
Oh, okay, I was gonna ask him if he just wanted to buy it.
Let's see. He withdrew that one, so today we're just talking about the B that is on the agenda for the conditional use, so.
I'm hard of hearing, I'm sorry.
No problem. We're not talking about that agenda item today. It was removed, the first one, with Dustin, yeah. Okay, sounds good. Other comments on this item that we're discussing, the conditional use for a food truck?
Could we find a phone number for him?
If you'll stick around, we don't have that information as the village. The village, Stephanie might be able to help you if you'll contact her afterwards. Yes, sir. We'll continue on with this conditional use, though. If there are no other public comments from the group that are here for this one, we'll go ahead and close public comments. And then Jasper, if you don't mind coming up front, the commissioners, I'm sure, will have a wide variety of questions that might help ease their concerns. Commissioners, I'll open it up to the group. What questions do you have for the applicant?
Well, I guess I usually start these, don't I?
Per usual.
Noticed on the application, all of the combined lots are still short of the 12,000 square feet. You have 70% of your square footage you're wanting a conditional use and a variance on is leased property, or it's stated in your letter that you leased it.
I own it. I own all that property. It's just owned by different LLCs, so it's not leased, it's owned. I own the 3 different businesses that conduct there. And unfortunately, if there was one not in the way, then I'd pick up all the additional square footage we needed. But they're built parking lot to parking lot, right? And so if you look at the letters that went out, we have 2330, 2331, 2332, 2334, 2342, and 2408 would be all under my ownership there on that little street.
Okay.
So I think unfortunately, because the way that it's all broken down there, it would almost be impossible to get those 50 by 100 or 25 by 100 lots to service this sort of thing. That's really the only piece of land left down there that's not developed back to Rio Street. Most of them are built sidewalk to sidewalk. And so what we did do is, you can see on there, there's that patio. We put that patio and that outdoor space in, fixed the positive drainage there. It used to just be kind of a mud pit that would sit there. So we fixed that, and that would be, but no, that's all ownership for us. So I'm the owner on file for all those. I just lease those properties to separate tenants, if you will.
Okay, so you are the owner of record then?
Yes, sir.
So it's basic, so it really wasn't leased, it's just property you own?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I guess leased technically, right, because they're owned with LLCs, but it's the same person.
Yeah.
Devil's in the details, I guess.
Yeah.
Bart?
Well, this ruling of square footage, is this a village-wide ruling, or is this pertaining strictly to Midtown?
Per the code, that approved structures can only be granted the conditional use if they meet the requirement of 12,000 square feet. And that is a condition upon the,
The whole village?
no, just C2 and C3 districts. Those are the only districts that are allowed to obtain a conditional use for a food truck. But they do fall back on the minimum requirement of a 12,000 square foot lot.
Which, that's not the law today, but during our rewrite, I think we tried to address the square footage to a different number. That's the future state, so it's not law today, but I think that number's dropping to 10,000, should it pass village.
It has not gone to council.
It is not, but that was what we proposed as a board, correct?
I believe we just clarified the exact language on the requirements, but I do not recall a square footage requirement being dropped.
Fair enough.
And I would even be happy with a 5-year timeline in saying, we're giving you 5 years to figure out if this concept works. And if so, that gives me time to get ducks in a row and wait for interest rates to come back down to where they're not, usury, and then I can go ahead and develop that property and put in something permanent, right? So I would be happy with that. I'm not asking for this, and I understand the concerns from this group. And as one of the larger property owners in Midtown, I would say I'm as equally concerned. But I do want that area to not lose traffic and not lose people. And the problem is the way that a lot of this variance is written, to your point, you can put 10 food trucks at another property over here, right next to each other, which I think is tastefully done and well done, but then you can't have additional food in Midtown. So it makes it really hard for the standard restaurant model in America post-COVID. It doesn't work a lot anymore. A lot of those closed and more of them are closing. So it's just your mobile vending style establishments that are working. We're doing limited food across the street at Noisy Water. It's just all in hopes that we're helping keep people down there, giving them bites, keeping them satiated. And it's really demand-based. You know, it's when I started, I had no food offerings, and that's something we've expanded since COVID, just truly to help keep people in the district. Because what we see is a lot of times when they leave, they go where there's more food offered, which is not Ruidoso. It's going out to the Mountain Gods, it's going out to other places. They're leaving your tax basis, and they're not staying in that district.
Thank you. I have a couple questions logistically. The trailer or the truck that was provided as a photo as an example looks like it is maybe 30 feet long. Are you actually going to be able to get a trailer of that size within that lot?
That's the trailer we own. It's currently at Enchanted Vine out in the county. That was the one that the Ponders were going to put in at Glencoe Distiller Inc. That was their trailer that they had for that. So that's the one we own. That's the one we would like to place there. To the logistics, I think we're going to need a crane and a really good, sort of heavy equipment operator to be able to physically place that in there. Because you're absolutely right. It takes up the majority of the back end of that space there. And then we would connect that with stairs to the back door of the business so your employees could go from to and from and use that as a mobile space.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Bart.
Well, I'm all in favor of this, quite frankly, and I know the Jasper's reputation for top-notch development and all, and I like the idea, too, of bringing more activity to Rio Street, and I've been a proponent of that, trying to push that for years, and I think they ought to realign the thing. But,
me too.
Anyways, that's a whole nother issue. But I guess my conundrum is I've been sworn to uphold the rules that are in place, and so can I bend the rules in this situation?
I'll clarify. It's not bending the rules. We can grant a conditional use and a variance. This is well within our purview. So,
but even with the lack of square footage,
that is well within. We can place that as a variance or a conditional use as this board, if we determine it, and we can place the conditions on this if we wanted to. So it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, could be. It can't be no more than 10 feet wide. It can be in terms of a trailer. I mean, we have that ability. We are supposed to adhere to the code as it is written, but within this board and commission, we do have the ability to grant variances and conditional uses.
okay.
So that would be my comment on that. With that in mind.
Members of the board.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, just a quick comment. I just heard your statements and I've heard some of the comments from the public, and I do strongly believe that while there are extremely good points that are being made, and especially to the point of what a variance is, I would just focus on the need for the variance as related to what the code is, as well as the requirement in the past that you've heard items on that didn't necessarily meet the minimum 12,000 square footage items were also denied. And so I just want to make sure that that's something that the commission is aware of on this item. That's not to say that what's in front of you right now, the items or the points that are being made aren't necessarily good points. I think you made comments related to the rewrite of Chapter 54 and some of those texts that would be changing, but I just wanted to make sure that that reflected what you were reviewing based on the current code right now.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. And that, you say that in the past there was denial. You're speaking specifically for mobile vending in the Midtown district. There's been denials in the past, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Michael's statement is along the same lines of my thinking, and I'm not saying what you're wanting to do isn't well taken and well pointed, but we do, as my fellow commissioner stated, we have municipal codes. And this council here has worked hard to get codes back in line within the village of Ruidoso. So that's my problem, and I wish Zach was here today.
He's online. Do you have a question for him?
But I think with what Michael said, he pretty much covered that we've already denied other applicants for such. And I feel like we're stepping out if we don't stick with what we've been doing and be consistent in what we do. It's my opinion.
Thank you for your comments. And there, Zach is on if you have a question for him.
No, Michael pretty much answered it.
Okay. Commissioners, other comments, questions for the applicant?
I have a comment.
Yep.
I'm kind of on the same line as what Michael and Commissioner Bond just talked about. I mean, we've had other applicants. We've denied them because we are basically upholding the rules that are set forth in the area. Now, if we allow this, then we kind of lose our footing on anything future here until either A, we have a chapter rewrite and we lower the square footage, or, you know, we're gonna end up denying somebody that's gonna have maybe just as compelling a story, but not in that same area. So, I mean, I think that's something we need to, as a commission, look at. And I'm all for food trucks, trust me. I think we ought to actually have a dedicated space, you know, downtown somewhere where they have multiple food trucks. I mean, I know what it's like post-COVID to try to get people to work at a huge restaurant and all that, and it's different. If you have a food truck, you're limited employees, and you can get the job done probably a lot more efficiently. So, that's only the comment I have about it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Other comments or questions for the applicant?
Just, you had mentioned that the stuff that you said was leased was actually stuff you do own.
Yes.
Is there any adjoining property that gets you to that 12,000 square foot minimum, or?
So if you count 2342 Sutterth, which is not adjacent, it's right there, but it also counts where you count your property lines on Rio, right? I technically own half of the city Rio Street if you look where my pins are. So I understand the concern of the commission. And you know, and then if you go down two more, 2408 is my property. That alone is 12,000 plus square feet. I think we could sit here and say, but I'm asking for a variance. I'm asking for conditional use. I'm coming in under the confines of the statute, asking for an exception to be made. I understand it needs to be made on a case-by-case basis, but my hope is that this commission has the brevity to say, yes, we understand that this is the approval, that we have the ability to make a variance given based off individual circumstances. Because if this doesn't work, then I'm going to come back and then try to change the whole entire code. So I would like to not take that fight. I would like to be a positive part and say, please help me with this. Let's use this as a beta test for Midtown to see if it works. Let's use this. Let my other friends in the room that are sitting as opposition, give them a couple years to say yay, nay, or otherwise, and use this as a beta test for this. It's a structure I'm putting on property I own that it would be almost impossible to get 12,000 square feet in that whole entire Midtown area, unfortunately, based off C3 zoning. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. The other properties are there and they have kitchens in them. So that's the part I just hope the commission would look at.
Thank you, Jasper. Michael, yes.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, I do think that it's important to note that the combination of multiple units and ownerships within town is also something that needs to be discussed. Again, I'm not saying that it should or should not be considered. What I think the code is evaluating right now is that that's something that's not permissible, and I think those are items that you also want to take into account during your discussion. In this case, again, you may have a variance that's specifically limited to a large ownership where in other instances, that may be a situation that may be impacting other businesses. And so just like the code is evaluated for special use permits in other situations, whether it be liquor licenses, whether it be cannabis use, whether it be anything else, it's specific to the location that's being identified. It's not necessarily the majority of locations that are in fact owned. And so just another item to review or have a discussion on, but I want to make sure that that's clear as well.
I'd like to hear Zach's 2 cents.
Zach, do you have any comment on that about by the property, not by the owner? I imagine you support Michael's perspective, but.
I do. I can't interpret the code to allow for moving around the lot lines. This is the first time I've ever been confronted with that. It's an interesting concept.
Right.
But I don't know that it really works
Yeah.
right now.
Did you want him to comment on anything else, or was that?
No, Dave.
Okay. All right, thanks, Zach. I think my 2 cents, and if there's other questions for the applicant, we can answer them or ask them. It's kind of tricky because, right, the question is because it's a mobile unit, right? If he just came in with applications and plans to build a small kitchen back there that served booze, it wouldn't come to this board, and it would just go through the normal planning process. And this lot here is probably the only lot, or nearly the only lot in Midtown that would allow for a mobile unit. There might be a handful others. So it is a unique situation in my perspective, but I know that the language is very clear that says mobile vending stands are expressly prohibited except improved with conditional use or temporary and operated in conjunction with special community and civic events. So like, I know that there's an or in there, conditional use or temporary, but I really think that that intended is only for a short period of time, so.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
so I know we're all in this together, so, knowing this is the beginning of our busy time of the year, and I feel where you're coming from, where you're trying to go to. Would 6 months be enough time to give you kind of a litmus test to figure out whether or not that would be a workable thing?
If I could get people in that office to get me permits faster than that to build something.
Well, I'm just saying, if you had a 6 month, I'd
be open, I would be willing to try anything. You know, I think for me, a year realistically would give me time to say this works, and it gives me plans to get, you know, because you're talking building commercial in Ruidoso, right?
I get it.
It's going to take me, from the second I say go, it's going to take me a chunk of time to get it done. And I've looked at other options, and I've looked at permanent options, and that's what I'd like to do eventually. But I don't want to rush in and build a structure that I'm going to rebuild eventually.
No, well, what I was trying to say is if we, and hypothetically, if we said, well, you have 6 months to have this trailer on the lot, that gives you 6 months as a litmus test to figure out whether or not this is going to work for you. And within 6 months, you come back before the panel, and we say, well, you're going to have to build and you would know by then whether you're not.
I would gladly take that. I would gladly take that if that's something that's,
Instead of a year or
Yep.
2 years or 5 years. I mean, gives him through the summer. It wouldn't be a long distance.
No, and I would gladly take any period of time to get in, to get operational and figure out the flow of that space. And that's the biggest concern for me is I don't want to sit here and say, here's how I'm building this out. And then in 3 months be like, oh, that was not what I should have done.
Yeah, money wasted. That's what I'm just asking. A short term would be okay with you.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'll ask another clarifying question. This will be directly tied to the menu that already exists within the cellar.
Exactly.
Right?
And
So
if you said no, I could still do this menu out of the cellar.
You'd just be walking down.
I would just have employees walking downstairs, and I could build a little tiki bar out there and have them do it out of that. I mean, this looks better. This is a better representation of the way you want that district to do. I could have somebody out there in a pop-up tent on the weekends, like some people have their vending in Midtown. That's not what I'm asking for.
Okay. Commissioners, thoughts, comments, questions for the applicant?
Chairman,
Yep, Zach.
just a suggestion on the timing, you could also do a certain amount of time from such date as all permits, starting at the date that all permits have been issued. Just to kind of split the date there.
So,
That he's not,
Not waiting,
For
we're
the
not
building
waiting for
permits.
permit time.
so the clock's not ticking on him.
Clock starts at
Permits
permit.
are still trying to get processed.
right. Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Williams, anything to add? Yeah, I think you're the only one that hasn't had your 2 cents.
I think back to when, I believe, the intention, as I understood it in this ordinance, was to protect the owners of property in Midtown from losing, income and from cluttering the area with mobile vending units like this. I don't know, apparently they feel differently now. We heard from a good number of them that were for this. And living here, I know the lines are long at the restaurants and reservations are almost a mess. So it's tight in that regard, and that doesn't help the area for tourists. It's a complex question.
Yeah,
And I think a time stamp, having run a business here, it seems like everybody knew in 3 years if they were gonna make it or not, if they had to find work elsewhere, or if they could continue with their business here. And it just, years and years after years and years, you would see them make it to 3 years and then it was over with. And I think that time frame might be a more reasonable question.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Is there a motion or other comments from this board?
I have one more comment, and
Thank
this
you.
is maybe a clarification.
Yep,
So the permit is actually being issued for a specific lot, correct?
I believe that is correct.
Yes.
I'm getting a nod from Ron. Yes, it's a specific lot.
So what we're looking at though is a combination of lots to try to make this square footage appropriate for the C2, C3 rule, correct?
I think in my application, sir, I was just trying to reflect the maximum amount of property that I had adjacent in that district to be as close when asking for the variance. I was just trying to reflect that I was a vested party in that area that was combining the max amount of properties, 3 contiguous properties in Midtown, to just show that the application, for asking less of a variance than in this. That's all I was trying to show in that. But if it was restricted back to the lot where it will sit or the site where it's sit, that's fine.
But I think the application would be for 2338, et cetera.
Correct, yep, that's the application, that's where we have the sign posted.
So have you explored what it looks like moving food across property lines? I don't think it matters, but I don't know.
It doesn't matter, no, and we already have that bonded for alcohol service, so you can sit out there and drink wine and beer. Right now, I'm just trying to give it less steps for employees and customers and people having an opportunity for a little better kitchen. To the point earlier about fire danger, I mean, these food trucks, it's a brand-new truck with an Ansel system. It's all out by state specs. I'm not trying to bring in something that's half done.
Yeah.
Will Ponder spent good money on that truck.
Department of Health would follow that up. Yeah.
So, just a clarification on that, the district does have a 0 parking requirement with the 0 setbacks. It doesn't allow you to cross lot lines. So potentially, depending on where the deck would be built, a replat would be required, which would jeopardize, any intent of the existing buildings that you have there. So you would have to solely develop only one single lot.
I don't think I understand on deck where the deck would be built.
You were stating that you have to have a building permit, but you
I would have to have
be.
a building permit if I were to put in a permanent structure on 2338 behind the existing buildings there to build something that's not a food truck.
This is all here already,
Right.
the deck and all
Yes,
that.
well, I'm just saying, because he said that he needed additional building permits, but it can't cross lot lines. So it would have to be specific to that.
Yeah, and
lot.
I'm not asking for a building permit on multiple lot lines. And I understand what a replat would look like. I would be asking, if I were to pull a permit, it would be for 2338 on the undeveloped portion, which we're now talking about where the food truck would go. So yeah, I would not do the two, absolutely.
I just wanted to bring that attention, so you guys were talking about that.
Or I'd be in here asking for a replat.
No, actually, that's not where this would go.
Commissioners, we'll need a motion to address this issue. I feel like we've talked through it, and I think there's still some folks, I think we're still unsure on how to go about this. But we can have a motion and then discuss the motion and move from there. So if folks have a strong opinion one way or another. And I, as chairman, technically cannot give motions, so I'd really appreciate it.
Trying to think here.
Uh-huh.
Is this where we would add in any suggested requirements like what Josh was saying for timing?
If you wanted, so you can see the staff recommendation, and within the staff recommendation, there are conditions already suggested. You can add additional suggestions on that conditional use, and then that would be incorporated within the suggested motion. Now would be the time to discuss those, or you can make a motion and then we can discuss the conditions afterwards. But we would then have to vote on that motion at some point once we discuss all the points. Not at this time. We've closed public comment.
Oh, gosh. Mr. Chairman, based upon the foregoing findings of fact 54-68, 54-150, 54-101 of the Village Code, I move to grant the requested conditional use approval and variance to deviate from the minimum lot requirement, size requirement of 12,000 square feet to be approved at 9696 square feet for the case CU PV-2024-32 with the conditions stated in the report.
Okay.
With, add to that.
Yeah, let's add what you would add to it, and then let's discuss
So
the motion.
with a 6-month approval,
April through September.
April through September, that would give you this, if you're starting by April, you're going to be that much with permits. April through September to come, 2024 to come back before us after that.
Okay, and the intention with him to come back would either be to request an extension,
Extension or
he would move forward with
a permanent
pulling
structure.
permits?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Second. Is that what?
Okay, we have a motion and a second with conditions stated. Let's do a quick discussion before we move to a vote, because I think we need to update your motion,
Yes.
because I think the 9696 is inaccurate, because it would be tied to the specific lot, which would be, I think 3,800 is what is listed.
2338, I believe, is that lot.
2338, and then the square footage of 2338, do you have that off the top of your head? I got it.
1,436.
So it would be, instead of 9696, Josh, it would be 4436.
4436.
And which business is located at that one?
Ruidoso Leathers would be the forward-facing business there.
Okay, so we would need to update the requirement to show that business since it's tied to that location, or are you still okay with the approval of the winery, the Cellar by Noisy Water Winery?
Yeah, so that's the unique part, because the current alcohol permit where he is allowed to serve booze on that property today is tied to the cellar. So, and I think we're tying, you're shaking your head, Ron, is that inaccurate, or are we?
No, I'm
Okay. Okay, no good, no worries then. Because I think it would be contingent upon that property even though it's on a different location. So I think we would still want to tie it to noisy water.
Yeah, I think that is tied in. Isn't that tied in the conditions? Yeah.
It is, but what Stephanie's point is, because it's on a different property, you're supposed to tie the conditional use to the business that's located on that property. And so Zach, I know that you're on, is there any issue tying the conditional use to a different business that's not on that property?
But the same.
I'm not as concerned about the conditional use as the variance and what you base your granting of variance on. The section 5466 is pretty specific on what you have to find in order to meet, or in order to grant a variance. And the Supreme Court of New Mexico has also, or the Court of Appeals rather, has also given some good guidance. I don't know if you want me to read, the basics of the legal framework for granting a variance, but I think we might want to go there if you guys are prepared to make a motion to grant it.
Yeah, I think you can go ahead and
Go
read
ahead.
the structure that we can
So
grant.
5466 says that no variance or adjustment in the strict application of any provisions of an ordinance may be granted unless, one, special circumstances or conditions fully described in the planning commission's findings are peculiar to the land or building for which the adjustment is sought and do not apply generally to land or buildings in the neighborhood and have not resulted from any act of the applicant subsequent to the adoption of this article. I think that's probably been met, but you may want to flesh it out a little bit more, that this particular land creates a hardship. The second part of that, or the second subsection says, for reasons fully set forth in the planning commission's findings, the circumstances or conditions are such that the strict application of the provisions of this article would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of the land or building. The granting of the variance is necessary for the reasonable use thereof, and the variance as granted is the minimum adjustment that will accomplish this purpose. And the part 3 is the granting of the variance is in harmony with the purpose and intent of this article and will not be harmful to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. I think you've had lots of testimony supporting that, but you may want to talk about it further so that if a variance is granted, the letter describing the planning commission's findings will reflect what has been discussed and you guys agree that those requirements have been met. So again, number 1 was special circumstances fully described in the commission's findings are peculiar to the land for which the adjustment is sought and do not apply generally to land or buildings in the neighborhood and have not resulted from any act of the applicant. 2 is the more difficult one. For reasons fully set forth in the planning commission's findings, the circumstances or conditions are such that the strict application of the provisions of this article would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of the land or building. The granting of the variance is necessary for the reasonable use thereof, and the variance is granted. As granted is the minimum adjustment that would accomplish the purpose. I think the minimum adjustment is met, arguably, that by the fact that it requires 12,000 feet and he's got 7,000 or however much. So would this deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of the land or building? And I think you guys should probably talk about that a little bit further. And maybe you might want to ask Mr. Riddle how it would.
Okay. Just to restate that back, maybe in simpler terms, number 1 is that the lot is unique. And if the lot is unique, it has special circumstances that would require a variance. Is that correct?
It says the land or building.
Land or building is unique. Number 2 is there are circumstances that prevent the use of that lot. So if it's in a swamp.
It would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of the land building.
And then number three
There's no
was,
variance necessary.
and number three was,
The granting of the variance is in harmony with the purpose and intent of this
Right.
article.
right. And there is an argument,
C2.
there's an argument to be made that it's harmful because if there's one mobile vending unit in Midtown, then that's harmful for the entire area, and that's why the condition was met. But there's also been support in it. Number one, the property is unique because it is on the backside of a building and does not address et cetera. So the other one, number two, reasonable use of the property as is. And I think you've admitted yourself, you can use the property as is by utilizing the steps next door.
Right, but from a service standpoint, that's a hardship on my staff, and it's in a floodplain. You know, so you're talking a lot more, like it's a spring that runs through there, not a floodplain, but there's a spring that runs through there that I had to divert all that water. So it was standing water for the past decade. So it's, you know, for me that's part of the reason why I've not jumped right into construction, because I know it's gonna be an absolute nightmare as I look, and that's why that was never developed. That's why that lot is unique, because when people tore into that 20 years ago, which was my father when he built it, when he tore into that lot 20 years ago, they found that there was a spring seeping out of the back of it, and that's never stopped. So we've got that diverted, and that's now at least dry, but that's being done with, you know, with drainage, right? It's not being done with some massive improvement to build a structure on. So it does take more diligence on my part, and I think the hardship would be on staff and customers, because you're now putting a point of sale up 2 flights of stairs, where the state has already granted alcohol service. So that would be my argument as to why I would ask for this under those statutes.
Okay, thank you for your clarification there. Do we feel like, given what Zach has outlined and he's shared his concerns, that the variance is the best way to approach this problem? And
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, if I could just request a clarification on an item based on staff recommendation.
yes, go ahead.
So based on the analysis that was presented to you, and I just want to make sure you understand our interpretation of what Zach just mentioned on number one. Staff recommendation is stated in the case analysis as staff finds the applicant's proposal location does not meet the requirement as set forth by the municipal code related to the variance. And one of the items I just want to address is, you mentioned that this item is unique because of the land. As Mr. Rill stated, and as C2 and C3 has been identified in conversation, most of these properties are built next to each other, and are very much unique to that situation, not necessarily that there is available land, but that most of these properties are similar in nature. And so if there is that piece of land that is possibly viable for something like this in the future, that would need to be looked at, not necessarily that it's unique because it has that piece of land. And so I just wanted to make sure that you saw that staff recommendation interpretation on uniqueness versus what you had mentioned, Mr. Chair.
So you're saying, due to the fact that it's in C3 does not make it unique, essentially?
That is correct.
Right. And the zoning can't dictate uniqueness, essentially?
Correct. Yeah, at least that was the interpretation of staff.
But individual property could dictate uniqueness?
Yeah, so typically for a variance, it's like terrain. If you buy something on the cliff, an argument could be made the spring, like, there's no viable use if there is legitimately a spring, like you can't dig footers or you can't put a solid foundation in there. It's stuff that we don't necessarily know. I mean, I'm not saying that there's not water there.
Sure.
But the individual lot dictates uniqueness. It's weird shape, there's no other use for it. So part of it, the variance is like, how can we use this so that the applicant can get value from this property due to its unique nature? So we have a motion, so we do need to respond to the motion that Josh said. He also incorporated a 6-month approval for a proof of concept, and then it would come back to us. During that time, he would be able to place the unit, operate the unit, and then it would come back to us. If, just so you're aware of repercussions, if it comes back, you've placed the unit, and we say, hey, you have proof of concept, we aren't gonna go forward with it again, you would have to remove the mobile unit or stop vending from there, if this board says that's what we want to do. So there is that if the board votes on this.
Well, I guess my only thought would be if that's something that this board is considering in 6 months, I would just ask for a little more time. So it gives me more time to get my ducks in a row. Because they're truly, I mean, it's truly a standing water there, and I'm gonna have to handle that. And I've looked at Sabscrete. It's a mobile foam building that you can bring in from out of state. They can truck it in, has an R factor of over 90. You can put it up, they use them in the swamp. They have hurricane values, burn values, everything. I've looked at that to bring one in and slam it in because I know the problems they're running into with the container bar concept across the street and getting people to try to understand how to, certify a container, a shipping container, if you will, something. So I've looked at something that could be site built that's not going to be susceptible to sticks and mud essentially, right? Because it's going to be hard to get that done. And per that, I mean, I wish Dakota was here. Dakota did the dirt work and it's been rerouted to where that's not there, but there is a spring there. It was argued over 20 years ago if it was village water or not, but there's a constant water source that's coming out of the back of that property and has been for a long time.
Okay, thank you for your comments. So commissioners, we need to decide if the variance is something that we believe would be within our purview, given what Zach's outlined, and that the motion as adjusted by Commissioner Richardson is something that we would agree to. So any discussion on that? If not, we can respond to the motion set in front of us.
The only challenge I have is that, and this is new information, is if you've got a spring there, that, since it goes into the River Ruidoso, Corps of Engineers might have a different opinion about what you've, done with the spring and what you can do in the future. You can't build in wetlands. And if it's a designated wetland, you've got a problem regardless, whether it's a temporary structure or whatever you've done existing.
It's not designated. It's not designated wetland. It's in there's, it's not. So I guess allow me to clarify. It's not a designated wetland. There's just water that is constantly standing there from what has been deemed a stream. Most of those buildings that face Rio, those lower levels, they're below grade. They have water seeping into them. So that's all of Midtown that you're talking about.
Well, like I said, if it's a seeping spring, I'd be more comfortable if you had a letter from the Corps that said it was not designated wetlands. I've dealt with that in my career in the past. And I've had to disassemble structures that got put in areas that the Corps decided, okay, no, this really is a wetland. You can't do that. So that's just my 2 cents on that. So.
That's his risk.
It gives me time for diligence. If you give me a conditional purchase, it gives me time to look into all this. That's all I'm asking for is time.
That's not up to us to make that determination.
Correct, yeah. I would agree.
As well as the alcohol situation going across lot line and stuff.
Exactly, that would be up to him
That
and
isn't up
his.
to us, that's.
Correct. Our question in front of us is, should he be able to put a mobile vending unit that is approximately 8,000, right, 7,500 square feet below what our ordinances say? And is that fair because of the lot and location, and there's no other reasonable use for that lot and location that we see?
And clarification of the motion was just to give him time to see if it was going to be a viable concept or not.
Yeah.
Within 6 months, I mean, he agreed to 6 months after permit would start. I mean, that would give you time to see whether or not it was even viable to even proceed further.
Yeah.
Or move the trailer off and forget about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what the motion was, so.
And, go ahead, Ron.
Just a clarification. So the 6 months, at the end of that, he would have to come back before us and re-permit this, or is the variance just carried through? How do we do this?
Well, that's a good point, because a variance is with the property technically, right? Zach, the variance, this is a variance request, right? It's a variance and a conditional use, and a variance goes with the property. Is that correct, Zach?
The article says, or the ordinance says that you enter into a variance agreement, I can't remember if it's a variance agreement or a conditional use agreement, but it would just be written into an agreement.
Okay. And the agreement says, hey, for 6 months, you can have this on this property,
Correct.
as it states now.
Correct.
Does that help, Ron?
Yeah, I'm just wondering what happens after the 6 months. I mean, do we come back here and go back through this, or, we grant it for 6 months, and then is it a condition of the variance? Or are we just giving him the variance on for that particular lot? And that's the thing I have a little problem with here is, he's applying it for 2338, I believe, correct?
Correct.
This road, yes.
Correct, that's where the trailer will be, yes, sir.
Now, is that the leather shop, or is that?
That is the vacant land behind the leather shop that would be adjacent to the patio, which is the business, the Cellar Uncorked. The Cellar Uncorked has Rio Street entrance via stairs, and it would be the adjacent patio on that fence. The leather shop does not have Rio Street entrance. It would be either the stairs next to the bookstore or coming through the Cellar Uncorked. So it's not a usable space to 2338. There's no access. So that's why the Cellar Uncorked is the only logical user.
So Ron, is your question for Zach, what happens at 6 months? Like legally, is the variance still there? Legally, is the conditional use still there?
Yes. Zach?
What do you want it to be?
Well, I'm not.
Variance agreement is required. In order for the terms and condition of the variance granted to become effective, a variance agreement is required and shall be filed of record with the county clerk, the provisions of which shall be binding upon and inure to the benefits of the parties, grantees, successors, heirs, assigns. So, I guess this is the time that you talk about what you want to happen in 6 months, or at whatever time in the future that you guys set for whatever you set.
So, and that's my question, because if we put a time limit on it, does the variances expire? And,
We can
no more for it, or does it go on for perpetuity? That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
So typically with our variances, it's in perpetuity and it's tied to the property. My interpretation of what Zach's saying is that we can dictate the length of time that this variance is granted within the agreement. So if within 6 months, we want to say, hey, you got till September. If it goes well this summer, great. Then you can come back here and we can either extend that another 6 months, or we can say, hey, we aren't going to extend this anymore. You need to build a permanent property or building there.
So it's got a sundown.
But is that a condition of the variance, or is that tied to the conditional use permit? Because under the conditional use permit, it says it can be a period of time, but I don't see that on a variance where it says a period of time.
That would be a question, again, for Zach, and I think Zach was saying that we can make it either way, right? For a variance agreement? Yeah.
Yeah, because it says under 5468, a permit may be issued for a specific period of time with automatic cancellation at the end of the time unless it is renewed or conditions may be applied to the issuance of the permit and periodic review may be required. That's the conditional use permit language.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, I just wanted to clarify something with Zach really quick, based on your discussion. Zach, just to make sure the conditional use permit is used specifically for the time frame only, correct? It's not meant to get the use of the land to meet the variance. It's two different things. I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
I agree with that.
Okay, so I just want to make sure we're not connecting two items to get to a resolution. The one is specifically for,
Right, and I think that's Ron's question, so,
Yeah, exactly.
So both the conditional use and the variance have a sundown clause on this.
I think we can do that, correct?
It's an application for a conditional use and a variance.
Right, and we can say,
Variance agreement is required, and you can put in the agreement any terms that you want,
right,
So the,
as long as
just to
both
confirm,
parties agree to it.
Zach, just to confirm, the applicant, specifically applied for a variance for the land use only.
it says conditional use and variance. I don't know the paperwork, but in front of us, it says and.
Stephanie, could you clarify that really quick?
The applicant is requesting the approval of a conditional use with the variance to be granted to deviate from the minimum lot size requirement. So the variance is only specified to the lot size requirement as specified by the conditional use requirements.
Okay. So I think we're all on the same page there, but it's an and. We're giving them a variance for lot size and a conditional use for mobile vending. According to Zach, both can be time boxed. So we can say you can put a mobile
Well,
vend. Go ahead. Is that not right?
I don't mean to like nitpick, but I would put the conditional use first,
Yeah.
because that allows the use and then the variance. That's real nitpicky, but
But you're an attorney and
a
that's what
conditional
you,
use permit, you can place any conditions on it, including, time frame conditions. And the ordinance for variances allows, not only allows, it requires an agreement. And it's,
okay.
it provides certain minimum requirements, but you can write in there, and because it is a conditional use with, that allows for time limits or whatever, I don't see that there's any reason why you couldn't write that into a bigger agreement for a variance and a conditional use.
Okay. Would it make more sense for us to vote on these separate? Or is it okay with the motion as stated? Because it says conditional use approval and variance. Variance is secondary in that sentence, but do you want us to vote on it separately?
I'm not. If I had a better feel of what you were voting on, I'd probably answer it better, but maybe you should just break it up and then.
Yeah, we do have a motion, so that's what we're voting on. And the motion says a requested conditional use approval and variance to deviate from minimum lot size of 12,000 to 4,436.
Well, maybe you could have an alternate motion to grant the conditional use permit for a certain amount of time and then move over to the variance. It really doesn't matter at this point.
Okay,
But you may, your motion should include any special terms that you want in the agreement.
right.
Or you can talk about them and then amend the motion to include the terms that you and the applicant have agreed upon in your conversation.
Okay. Josh, with your motion, do you want to break it up? Do you want to continue with the motion as is? Or do you want to,
I mean, Zach said we can, or we can do it either way. I mean,
right,
it's all under the same case number.
right,
So
Yeah,
we'll just leave it all at one and be done and this,
okay,
may I clarify that the time limit is attached to both the variance and the conditional use.
yes.
yes. The conditional use is from April to September 2024. The variance is a part of that condition, yeah, April to September for both.
Through.
Yeah. Any other items that you would want to add to this motion?
Chairman, what
Yeah.
if we take this into executive session to make sure that we dot our i's and cross our t's here?
Okay. I have is that a motion? We have a motion to move to executive session.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move to
You
executive session.
need to state under the Open Meetings Act what exceptions to the Open Meetings Act that you're going to go into an executive session on.
To discuss this item and this item.
1051, Michael, you may know the exact number, I don't, off the top of my head.
what are the items that we, go ahead, Michael.
No, I don't have the exact language, I'm looking it up.
I'm looking for it. So it's 10-15, 10-15 NMSA 10-15-1 H. Three. So you should propose a motion to go into executive session pursuant to NMSA 10-15-1 H3 to discuss for deliberations in connection with administrative adjudicatory proceeding, whatever the case number is.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we go into executive session to discuss the case report conditional use and variance of number CU PV-2024-22 according to statute NMSA 10-15-1 H3.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Let's do a vote on that.
Commissioner Ball?
Aye.
Commissioner Byers?
Aye.
Commissioner Hall?
Aye.
Commissioner McElina?
Aye.
Commissioner Richardson?
Aye.
Commissioner Rigsby?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams?
So
Okay.
moved. We'll move to executive session. We'll come back out at the end of executive session to respond to the motion that's in place. We'll call you in, Ron, Vicky, and Zach. We're gonna get on another Zoom. Okay. If you'll just pause yours.
Yes, we're gonna provide you another link to enter